Good morning. Yeah, good to see all of you. Thank you for being here. And, this has been an interesting week, interesting couple weeks for a lot of us in different ways. Um, I'll just call out the elephant in the room that, some people were elated, some people are deflated, some people are wondering, what's going to happen. It is what it is, and I know that God is in charge. I know that God is in charge, no matter what's happening. I woke up the morning after the election with a Christian hymn, an old Christian hymn in my mind that I hadn't sung in ages. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. I thought, wow, it just showed up for me, And I realized that it's important to be very centered. It's important to know where we are standing and to know that no matter what happens on the outside, we are this presence of God. Nothing can change that. I realized this week, I have these talks with God, and it's like, okay, it's up to you to choose who you're going to be. No one else can determine that. No one else can take that from you, regardless of what party or what president or what. You choose who you will be. In the book of Joshua, they were getting ready, and we talked about this previously, getting ready to go into the promised land, getting ready to go into this new way of living, this new way of being. But there had been pockets of resistance. There had been people who were holding back and fearful. And Joshua said, choose you this day whom you will serve. Every day we choose what we will serve. Will I choose my self-pity? Will I choose, believing that someone or something is against me? That's always fun to do for a while. Have any of you done that recently? Bev, you're so pure. No, nothing. No one's against you. You know the truth, don't you? You got it. Others of us, sometimes we're like, but I'm really knowing more and more that there is no one, there is nothing that is truly against us. Because we believe, we know there's only one power. Repeat this after me, please. There is only one power. Repeat after me. There is only one power and one presence, active as my life and as the universe. God. Just feel into that. If there's only one power and one presence, then what could possibly be against us? What did you say, Tony?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Well, things can trip us up, and we'll get into that because we're talking today about navigating the rapids. But in Romans chapter 8, Paul, who had been beaten, he had had stones thrown at him, he had been put in prison, he had had all kinds of things done. There was even a time where they thought he was dead, but boop, up he popped back up. He was resilient, and he said, if God be for us, who can be against us? Can angels or principalities or this or that? No. He had discovered that there was this presence in him that was greater than anything on the outside. So I just want to say, if your dependency is on the outside and on the circumstances, you're in for a great ride. However, if you really know the presence of God within, if you really know this presence, then you know it will be a great ride. It really will be. Now, the rapids. Okay, so how many people here have ever been whitewater rafting? Quite a few of you. I've been whitewater rafting multiple places. One of the places I've enjoyed is the Poudre River in Colorado. And sometimes, like springtime, you can get really high whitewater rafting, you know. So I've been on multiple whitewater rafting trips. And when you're in the rapids, you are 100% committed. Once in a while, there are people in the raft, they're getting in the rapids, and they're like, no, I want to get out. Too bad. You're in the rapids, you're in the raft, you're going, you're 100% committed. All of us are 100% committed to the changes going on in our lives personally, in the country, in our world. We're 100% committed because we're in the raft. You might be screaming. You might be holding on to that little rope, and I never quite figured out that little rope, you know, that people hold on to sometimes instead of paddling. You're in the raft. Yeah, you're in it. So you're 100% committed. And you know, when I was in about 7th grade, I was in the mountains of Colorado, and it was one of those church camps. You know, they would have us shoot rifles. Like, really? 7th graders? Good grief, we could barely control ourselves. Shoot archery, and then they'd send us off in little rafts, 2 7th graders together, send us out into the rapids. This is before the days of helmets and protective equipment. You know what I mean? This is back in the day like, they're 7th graders. They're resilient. Let's go to the cafeteria and get a snack. And so, you know, I was young, obviously, and we're in the rapids, and I'm with someone else who's like rocking the raft, and I fall out. And so I go down the rapids without a raft. How many people here have gone down the rapids without a raft? Way more than I thought. Oh my goodness. So, you know, and somehow in my 7th grade mind, I knew, lay on your back, go with the flow, keep your face above the water. Somehow in my 7th grade mind, I knew, you got to breathe. Whatever else happens, breathe. And that's one of the lessons. Whatever happens, whatever changes are going on in our lives, whatever changes are going on in our country, whatever changes are going on in our world, whatever changes are going on in your relationships, whatever changes are going on in your workplace, whatever's happening, breathe. Let's take a deep breath. Doesn't that feel better? So you got to breathe. You got to keep your face up. You got to keep your head above the water so you can continue to breathe. Now, it's not enough to keep your face up. I also knew in my 7th grade mind, I need to keep my feet out first. I'm not going head first through rocks. No, thank you. I got to go feet first. So I'm on my back, And it's like, okay, I'm in this. I'm 100% committed, right? What else am I going to do? And so I'm going to go with the flow. I need to stay on top of the water. Don't get sucked down. Keep your feet in front of you. And don't keep your legs stiff. Because if you hit a rock, you want to use your legs as shock absorbers. Makes sense, right? So here's another thing about navigating the rapids. Don't get stiff. There's a passage in the Tao Te Ching that says, when a tree becomes stiff, it becomes brittle and breaks. But when it's flexible, it can move with the winds and not break. It's important to remain flexible, to be able to flex and adapt to what's happening, what's coming our way. One of the words we use for this is emergence. What's going to emerge? As I was going down the rapids on my back, my face up, got my feet out there, I'm thanking God I'm not killed yet. And I see a big rock coming. I mean, the water goes where the water is going to go, right? I'm not out there saying, no, there can't be any rocks. I'm in the rapids. So I'm moving towards this big rock. And I'm like, just be cool, be flexible, use your legs as shock absorbers, be pliant, but keep your feet in front of you. And sure enough, I was able to do that. So we adjust and adapt to the things that are emerging in change in our individual lives. And this is all about resilience. This is all about resilience. Resilience doesn't mean, I'm just going to be rigid. No. Resilience, you need to be in the flow and be moving with it. But it's not a passive thing. I mean, while I was going with the flow, it's not passive, because I'm being aware of what's coming up. I'm being aware of the changes that are coming. So keep your eyes open. In the changes that occur in your life, in the changes that occur in the country, and the changes that occur in the world, keep your eyes open. This is not the time to stick your head in the sand. This is not the time to put on blinders and just la, pretend. We need to keep our eyes open. So it's not passive, and yet we're going with the flow. And this all relates to the inner and the outer journey. We believe in both, the inner and the outer journey. We believe that we need to be working on ourselves, working on our own stuff, because, hope everything's okay at work, Leah. She works at the same place my wife does. Okay. We need to be doing our own inner work. And that's one of the things we really encourage here. Instead of blaming others or making others what's the matter with us, have you ever made someone else the matter with you? Yes, you will. Like, I'm this way because they are blah, 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 blah. And at that moment, we've given control to someone else. We've given control, and if you will, the Bible says, you shall have no other gods before me. That's like pretty big in the Ten Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. And yet, instead of really tuning in to the Spirit that is within us, instead of really being in our God consciousness, instead of being firmly centered and grounded in spirit, we will make someone else the problem with us. That's putting someone in front of God. That's putting someone in front of God. They have more power, more control than God. Because at that moment, we may just be focusing on them and on what they're doing or not doing. Now again, okay, for a moment, forget about Timmy going down the rapids on his back. Obviously, I survived. But let's get back into a raft with, someone who's intelligent that is steering in the back. I've also done that before. And people who are paddling on the side. And they tell you ahead of time, all of you who've done this, don't they tell you ahead of time, those of you online too, right? Don't they tell you how to paddle? And when they tell you to paddle, like this side, paddle hard. And then this side, paddle hard. It's because they know the way. They know the way through those rapids. And I just love being on the side where he's saying, paddle hard, but they're gripping the rope out of fear. Our fear keeps us from being productive. Our fear keeps us from being community. Our fear keeps us from navigating the rapids. Your fear will not serve you in the rapids. It won't. Fear does not serve us well in times of change. And I noticed in one of those songs, it talks about change brings fear. And many times change does bring up fear for us, doesn't it? I mean, wherever you're from on the political spectrum, doesn't a major shift create some fear? Maybe not for you. Maybe not. But for many it does, or it can cause other kinds of reactions. And when people are afraid, they tend to turn on each other. They tend to blame each other. Because fear reduces our thinking. Fear kind of brings in that fight or flight syndrome, that's a protective response. When our ancestors would be running from a tiger, they needed to fight or flight. They needed to do something. That same emotional chemical cocktail enters our system when there's some change that is presented to us. And sometimes we think, this is out to get us. Somehow or other, this is not in my best good. Somehow or other, this is not a good thing. Instead of, how can we all paddle together? I've also done a lot of canoeing in Kansas. And often I would be in the back so I could steer. And someone in front, sometimes wouldn't even know which way to do the paddle. I'm like, oh. We need to work together. So navigating the rapids calls all of us even more to be community. What do we mean by community? We mean people who support each other. People who encourage each other. People who hold each other accountable. Where we know what we can count on each other for. People who are working together and not against each other. There's a lot to learn about navigating the rapids. This is the month that we celebrate the power of release, elimination, whatever, you want to say, letting go of stuff. We don't want someone in the rapids that's bringing a lot of heavy stuff. We don't want something that's weighing us down. One of the reasons is there's rocks below us. And the heavier our raft is, the more we're going to see the point of the rock coming up on the bottom of the raft as we're going over it. The more likelihood there is of tipping it. So again, what are you carrying with you? Is it really needed? Is it something that's helping you on the journey? Is it something that's helping you to navigate the rapids? Or are you bringing stuff to weigh the whole business down? Are you bringing something that's helping? Are you bringing something that's helping the community? Or are you bringing something that creates issues? We're all in this raft. In this country, in this world, in this spiritual community, we're all in this raft together. You can play like you're Switzerland. But in the rapids, there's no neutral parties. We're either going to navigate the rapids or we can capsize. So, in our individual lives, it's very important for us to do our inner journey, which in our mission statement, centered in God, we are transforming lives. That's the inner journey, working on transformation. So we can do the outer journey and inspiring people to make a positive difference in our world. Making that positive difference in our world is the outer journey. That's important in the raft. You need to be centered. You need to be sitting down. You need to know what you're doing. Not sitting on the edge like I've seen some people. And it's fun if you're in a still place, but if you're doing that during the rapids, you're going to fall out. You're going to fall out. So one last key thing I want to mention is to be really centered. When I'm in that raft, I want to make sure I'm not sitting on the edge, that I'm in a good spot. And if you have a good leader in the back steering, he will set people where they need to be according to their weight, their size, their paddling ability, so forth. I have once in a while been on planes where there wasn't a lot of people on a particular journey, and they needed to have people trade seats. They needed to balance the plane. Yeah, recently. Yeah. You know, sometimes, I believe it's Southwest has this thing, used to, that you could fly from one spot to another, and some of the people get off, but some don't, because that plane is going to travel on to somewhere else. So some people stay on the plane. And sometimes they have to shift people around. It's important to be grounded, balanced, centered. How many of you, the last couple of weeks, have felt really grounded, balanced, and centered? Keep those hands up. I think I counted 5. I don't know. Oh, there's another one back there. Times like this call for us to be grounded and centered, to really know where we're coming from, you know. That reading from Shalane Harkin, thank you, Cindy. I love Shalane Harkin's. It's when the earth shakes and foundations crumble that our light is called to rise up. Bring forth your light. Now is not the time to be afraid of the dark. We're called for such a time as this. You know? That's what it says in the book of Esther. Esther was in this very difficult predicament, situation, and she was told, who knows but that you were born for such a time as this? We are born for such a time as this. How do I know that? Because we're here. What's that? We be in the raft. We are in the raft. And we're in the raft together. So keep these lessons, you know. Keep your head up. Breathe. Stay flexible. And alert to those things that are emerging. Look for what's emerging. What is wanting to happen? What is wanting to happen here in this spiritual community? What is wanting to happen in this country? Go with the flow, and yet not be passive. Go with the flow, but also take action to be able to appropriately respond to those things that are emerging, and you can respond appropriately because you're really grounded in being that presence of God. If we do these things, it'll greatly help us to navigate the rapids. Thank you. I invite you for just a couple of minutes of meditation to center into this. This is to help us to center in the raft. So I invite you to relax your gaze, or if you wish, close your eyes. Let's take a deep collective breath together. God, we know that we are grounded in you. We feel like roots from the bottom of our feet going into Mother Earth to ground us, connect us with all living things, all people, our planet, grounding us in the presence of Spirit that we feel in our heart space. We are the presence of God. My life is the life of God. As we go into the silence. We bless each one who is here, each one who is listening online, here in person. We bless our lives, knowing our lives are the life of God. And we bless our light, letting our light shine. We bless our love, knowing we are here to love and support one another. We bless this ride as we navigate the rapids. We give thanks, and so it is. Amen.